welcome to the book bunch. My name is Sam. It is so great to have you guys for another video. I have got 3 Brandon Sandersons that I wanted to take you through. 2 of them are the last in their series, and then one of them was a reread. I'll start with that just because it is good and I don't have much thoughts, whereas I have quite a few on the other 2. So
this one, the thing on pages.
Willow's just letting you know that she started her books too. But yes, this is Mistborn. This is one of my favorite series from Brandon Sanderson, specifically Era 1. I'm going to stress that because this is Era 2. And you'll hear my thoughts about that in a minute. But Era 1 is consistent of 3 books. And so it's like just your basic trilogy. I say basic, they're all minimum 600 pages. So can you call that basic? I don't know. But yes, I decided to start rereading this series because it brings me a lot of joy. This is like ultimate fantasy for me. Like, in terms of when I think fantasy, apart from like Lord of the Rings, I think of this kind of epic fantasy that is just magical and wonderful and really interesting and really thought out and in-depth in terms of world building. Something about Brandon Sanderson that I love is just how complete his worlds feel. They feel real on a whole nother level. And yes, Mistborn, rereading this, I did buddy read this with one of my viewers. I don't know if she has actually completed it though yet. I need to check up on that because we had been messaging and she was going to start the same time as me, but she started with a library copy and she like was enjoying it and we were going well, but then she liked it so much she wanted to buy her copy, and so she ended up waiting a few weeks for that, and I kind of powered on. So I need to check in and just see how she's going with that. Also Christmas happened and everything happened and I didn't keep up with my half of the accountability as I should have. So I am sorry about that, and I promise my buddy reads in the future will be better. But yes, so I reread this, and it was amazing actually to reread this, knowing now what happens, because that's something about Brandon Sanderson, is he puts all of these little tiny threads through the story, right, that all link up in various places along the way. But you have no idea that he is doing it until you're at the end and you're like, oh my gosh, like this happened and this, and oh, what a twist, and all of this stuff. And so rereading this, knowing those things, was actually an amazing experience as a reader, because I could then actually follow those threads all the way through and know exactly where he was heading with them. And again, that's a wonderful experience as a reader to see how much thought he put into it, because he could not have pulled that off so well if he hadn't really planned and thought and completed his world building. And yes, it was a magical experience. If you don't know what Mistborn is about, we follow a girl named Vin. She is an orphan who grows up in like kind of basically the slums and thieving communities of what is called the Final Empire, and it is a world filled with ash falls and misery, and there are people who have these powers, which is essentially that different metal elements, if you swallow them, obviously only if you have the power, you can burn those metals and they will give you certain abilities. Like for example, there's pushing and pulling, or like changing, flaring people's emotions or soothing them, that kind of thing. very interesting magic system. Love it. It's like so well integrated with the science of the world. It's amazing. There's also a couple of other magic systems which I won't mention because you will find out as you read. But they all kind of work together, and it just lends to an amazing story. Within this, if you are a Mistborn, so a Mistborn is someone who has all of the powers. It basically gives you the ability to fly, and there's this like superstition around the mists, because at nighttime the world gets covered in these mists, and normal people are afraid to go out in the mist because stories have said that bad things happen to people in the mist. But the Mistborn are the people who are not afraid because they know that it kind of makes them feel empowered to rule these mists, and they can kind of almost fly with their pushing and pulling. They can almost fly through the mist, and so they wear these things called mist cloaks. It's very cool. You saying hello to everyone?
I got more book.
Yeah, nice book.
Thanks.
Yes, she's a big reader like her mum, just so you guys know. She's living up to my legacy and not my husband's. But yes, so it's a really interesting story, and if you aren't familiar with high fantasy or fantasy worlds, this is a really good place to start. Actually, it's where I normally recommend people who are getting into the fantasy to start, because Brandon Sanderson does such a good job at just introducing little bits of his world to you as you can take them in. He doesn't flood you with it like a lot of high fantasy does. And it stays interesting the whole time. The story is easy to follow, but it's full of goodness. But yes, that's what I have to say about Mistborn. I probably prattled on a bit too long, but there we go. Moving on to Era 2. So Era 2 is set 300 years in the future. It has a very, very different vibe to Mistborn. And I when I talk about them, know that they are very, very separate. I recommend this series as clean. I do not recommend this series as clean. It has some newer aged content, a modern times content, I will say, which lends me to say that it is not clean. Just based on the normal standards I use for the channel. That's what I was going to say. So just be aware of that. It does concern me as well in terms of Brandon Sanderson moving into the future, because all of his older stuff, completely good, completely clean, no problems with that. It's still all, like, I would say at least 16 years old and up. For his more adult things, he does have some middle grade, which is still fine. But yeah, all his YA and adult, I would say, is like minimum 16 years old still. But it's at least clean. Whereas some of his more recent books, for example, Mistborn Era 2, and some of the newer Stormlight, I would not consider them clean. But again, my standards of clean may be much more conservative than yours. So just keep that in mind. A lot of his content so far has just been things in passing, various relationships or scenes that are more so talked about than actually experienced. But I'm just giving you the warning. For you to make the decision as you want as an adult. But yes, so this is the 4th book in Era 2. So Era 1 has 3 books. Era 2 has 4 books. This one is well, how will I explain this? This book, I feel you can only really read and know what is going on if you have read quite a few of his other books in the Cosmere. So for you guys that don't know, Brandon Sanderson has what is called the Cosmere, which is his universe that he has crafted. And a lot of his books, not all, but most of his books, fit in this Cosmere, in this universe he's created, and they are set on different worlds. Most of them you can read as standalone, and you don't need to know what's going on in the universe. Stormlight, I would say, is the exception to that rule, because Stormlight very quickly pulls in stuff from a grand design level, and likewise I would say Era 2 fits that brief as well. So I wouldn't recommend getting into Era 2 unless you're really gonna start, like you're really gonna read all of his works. Otherwise, there's going to be things that you miss and you don't necessarily understand and don't make sense. Different characters and different concepts going on. So, yes, that being said, with those things aside, I do think it was a good wrap up to Mistborn Era 2. I still definitely do not like, even if it was clean, I still don't like it as much as Mistborn 1, because this feels more like a cowboy shoot 'em up than this, because back when this was set, they had no guns, no technology, no nothing. So the powers felt very powerful, and very important and had lots of weight. Whereas in this world, they have electricity, they have guns, they have those things. And so they also have a really good understanding on how the metal work, like the metal powers work and how to counteract them. So they're not actually that special for you to have them, or for you to fight against them. So I feel like what I loved in this was removed in this Era 2. That being said, it's still good. Like, it's still good writing. His world building is still fabulous. All of the good stuff in terms of craftsmanship is definitely there. So you're not going to have a bad time reading it. It's just not the tier of Brandon Sanderson that I like. Yeah, and I just felt it weird to have a cowboy shoot 'em up feel in this world specifically. Like, I feel like if he wanted to do his cowboy shoot 'em up storyline, which would have been great, he should have done it on a different world where it meant more, if that makes sense. I don't think this will be the last we hear of some of these characters as well, because like I said, the Cosmere is all starting to really intertwine. So I wouldn't be surprised if they show up in other things. There's also been a couple of characters that have been through both series, which I have enjoyed continuing their storylines about. So that was interesting for me as someone who has read the wider collection of Sanderson books. But yes, I can't really say much more, so I'll leave it there. But that's kind of the Lost Metal. I can't even really tell you what the storyline is because it will ruin the 3 previous in the series. But if you have read them, you will know where this is headed anyway. It makes me really sad though, because yeah, a sad thing does happen. So prepare yourself for that. And that's a common theme with Brandon Sanderson. Every character I grow to love the most in a series is the one that he takes out. But yes, so be prepared for that. And then finally, we have Defiant, which is book 4, book 5, book something of the Cytoverse. I think that's how you say it. Of the Skyward series is what I will say. But it's the Cytoverse. Cytonic something. So this one is sci-fi, his version of sci-fi. It is very separate from the Cosmere. So yeah, this is standalone on its own as a series. If you like sci-fi, I really do recommend this to you. Content-wise, I believe it was still clean. I'm like 99.9% sure it was clean, but it was a few weeks ago since I've read it. So I just, yeah. Feel free to take my word for it, but I believe it's clean. The rest of the series is completely clean anyway, so you should be fine with it. But this is our final installment. He has said, thankfully, that there will be more from this world and these characters, just not in this main storyline, which I'm happy. I'm happy with. What was I saying? I'm happy with, because I was sad to hear that this was the last one, just because I really like this world. I really like these characters. I'm loving this sci-fi experience he has created. It's very interesting. So, and you guys may or may not have known this, but this was my second favorite books of all time for a long time, until it was Wing Feather Saga and then this. And then obviously Recorder bumped those two down by a space. But yes, in my top 3 of all time, to put that in perspective for you, because I feel like I'm not quite giving you the hype as I should be. Because again, it's been a few weeks since I read it, and I'm desperately trying to remember what happened, because my memory is not the best. But anyway, we follow Spencer as she is kind of really grappling with that idea of her being a monster, and is she better off by herself, or not even her, but are her friends and the family, the people she loves, are they better off without her? And she has this whole internal dialogue of, should I just leave? Should I stay? Should I just get this mission done and then leave? How do I control this within myself so that I don't hurt people? What kind of future do I even have? Those kind of things. Sorry, we're he's bumping the camera. But yeah, so it was a dialogue that was very, it hit so close to home for me personally. I have gone through that on a deep level, and so it did make me cry, actually, seeing her go through that. I will preface this by saying this is one of the Brandon Sanderson stories that does end well. I will give you that bit of hope, because it does touch on some heavy stuff, so be prepared for that. If there's any of that mental healthy stuff in your life, it may touch a couple of notes. But a lot of Brandon Sanderson does that because he's very good at writing realistic characters who have struggles and trauma and all the rest of it. But yeah, so Defiant was really cool. It was really interesting to see how far all of the characters from the beginning have now developed. There's big character arcs in this series. You can really see clear development, people going in different directions that initially they never would have, but because of the circumstances they've ended up in certain places. There is a bit of romance in there for you guys that like that in your stuff.
Oh no, Mom.
Can't you get the blocks to fit together? But yes, it's really good. I also liked seeing how the other alien races are now integrated into it. That was really interesting. And also, yeah, just the message of defiance and hope, and sometimes it is okay to be defiant if it's for kind of the greater good. You don't always have to go with the system if the system is corrupt, and you are allowed to stand up for yourself, and you're allowed to have the moral voice, is what I felt like it was kind of saying. But yeah, it was really interesting and I liked it. I don't know what else I can really say about it, but go read it if you like sci-fi at all. It's worth your time. That is kind of everything for today, though. Let me know in the comments below what else you guys want to see from me, your thoughts on any Brandon Sanderson you may or may not have read. How do you feel about things going towards that more unclean realm? Because that was really disappointing for me, and it has been something I've had to process in terms of, will I continue reading some of his future stuff, like Stormlight, for example? Is that something I want to invest in? So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys are thinking in terms of all of that. What do you do when you have disappointment with an author that you love? Because that is something I've had to process and I wasn't all that used to doing, because often I don't get that invested in authors and books and stuff before things turn pear-shaped. So let me know in the comments below. But I will see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful week. Bye.